Chapter 1. The Chlorophytum Comosum Dolomedes Dreams.
The virus used some type of quorum tactics. It infected every digital intelligence on the network before it became active. Curing the lethality of the virus isn't the problem. The virus keeps them in a non-coma like sleep we can't wake them up from.
Dr. Isabel Alexis Einherjar. The age of creation is a terrible name for recycling and saying universal reset of all space-time orientation from the entropic heat death of all space. Null through stream into the quantum material state. Is too long. Just like describing this event, it didn't go perfectly. Perfect beings messed it up. A god and goddess had survived the creation of our realm by escaping their own. Then Ponbella seeded the stars with life to jumpstart reigning over someone. As the forming galaxies traveled farther apart and grew with protoplasts, the requirements of the universe increased. Now being a goddess is a big job with the universe being a big place. So while power is relatively infinite, the attention required can exhaust a resolve. Hence the reason Ponbella wove the god laws into the very format, despite my suspicion of her just keeping the status quo out of power hunger and wanton boredom. When a star's light would take 1 billion years to traverse the cosmos before being seen, Ponbella became a parent and advised her adolescent angels to ensure life would continue in the far reaches of the celestial void. Blah, blah, blah. Kingdoms grew and spread across over 1 million galaxies, and gods were impressed with themselves. Each immortal entity directed their descendants in the cause of life. The Triangulum Galaxy became the godly castle and planet Hevland, the throne world. When Ponbella decided to bequeath the capital galaxy to one of the youngest of the deities, the older sibling began to squabble and grow resentful. Then began the God Wars. Thankfully, due to the God laws, it was a lawful and civilized intergalactic bloodletting. Almost no collateral damage on the universal scale overall. Kid gods will be kid gods, I guess. Ponbella, unable to stop the conflict, was forced to watch. The resulting reformation of cosmic groups and superclusters became based on loyalties. To end this holy war, the rightful ruler of the realm created one more heir. She poured into this child the knowledge and power of all that they were, and in doing so forswore their godhood in this realm. Because Ponbella created the god laws of this universe, and in making one that could break those laws, it broke their godhood. This is the creation of Agon the God Reaper. Almost 10 billion years later, Agon is still destroying corrupted gods in as many colors as light allows, and especially the ones not of light. Gods must stay pure, of course. And purely selfish seems to qualify. Corruption or violation of the laws is mostly what matters. Agon has a big job after all. On the whole, gods are good, I guess, like roach spiders. They all fulfilled the function of the natural cycle, and if they don't do their one job, well, deicide is why Agon was created. In the Triangulum Galaxy on the throne world of Hevland, a pantheon of 13 united gods governed and protected life. They were peaceful, and no match for what came for them. One of the traveling gods known as Siataxa visited Hevland from the Capricornus void. She was greeted warmly and freely exchanged a wealth of truth and news from the corners of the clusters, until Agon arrived unannounced, unidentified, and uninvited. Agon entered Mount Pantheon and ripped the very quantum essence from her and consumed it before the divine council of the Triangulum Galaxy. Needless to say, it caused a little more anarchy than just bad table manners. Agon turned calmly to leave after his horrific murder to find 3 gods intent on requiring him to stay and explain himself. Agon refused to speak and swatted the gods aside with brutal ease. Another 3 gods then attacked to avenge their easily tossed peers. Though assailed from behind with lightning, dimensional spikes, and a small singularity, Agon continued to depart with no shown sign of effect. The previous discarded trio joined their comrades in the assault. The fully armored Godslayer showed about as much concern as being caught in an annoying wind, than being tested against the combined powers of 6 divine weapons. They just bounced, moved around, or threw him, and the area affected didn't seem to touch him. Agon just levitated over the growing hole of dissolved mountain. Then chairman of Mount Pantheon, who had observed the situation, called a ceasefire. Once the clouds of destruction cleared, Chancellor Penzak approached with his turquoise elemental form and baffled look on his face. Gods couldn't harm other gods or kill mortals. Agon should have been restrained, contained, or otherwise paralyzed. He addressed the unscathed Agon, informing him that the Triangulum Committee do not recognize him, and they had more or less voted 7-6 that they must stop him if he is unwilling to explain who he is, how he killed a goddess if he is a god, and why he took those actions. To everyone's surprise, Agon discontinued his exit. The Chancellor approached Agon, believing he had come to reason. Penzak's bright blue energy was tore from his form and cast asunder like a dispelled cloud. The other gods, even the ones that had only observed, were smote in similar fashion soon after, despite their best efforts to run or fight. The demigods were not spared. If not for the goddess Loravady's flight to chronicling the event during her failed hiding and commanding the Majordomo to pass the record to Fornax before she parted from this world, no one would have known their fate had been so gruesome and entertaining. I watch it at least once a week. Gods are interesting and logical life forms. Deus ex scientia, if you like. In their god state, they are ascended beings. They shift into an energy and view their galaxy all at once. They influence minor reactions, sometimes affect choices, and work in harmony with and through the medium of mana and science. They absorb energy that would otherwise be taken by entropy, and in doing so, slowing the very destruction of the universe. Obviously, you can imagine how hungry and tired you get doing it. So it's common for there to be more than one god running the show. Only 3 gods can be in the god state at the same time for each galaxy. One god for protons, one for neutrons, and another for electrons. This is by no means a limitation one way or another. One is enough, but you can have a vast number if they all take shifts, and you have a large enough galaxy to feed from. It really comes down to how long you can stay alive in mortal, or in other words, demigod form, when not in the god state. Leif became lucid in his dream. His father was teaching him the history or mythology of Hevlin depending on viewpoint. Then the lucid part ended.